Washington, D.C., March 2014, the capital of the United States, a city of monuments, politics, and power. But far from Capitol Hill's polished marble buildings, life looks different. Poverty is visible on every corner. Families struggle to survive, and the city's safety nets are worn thin. Inside an abandoned hospital sits the D.C. General Homeless Shelter, a crumbling building repurposed to house hundreds of people with nowhere else to go. This is where 8-year-old Relisha Rudd lived, a bright, lively girl with big eyes and a love for styling hair. Teachers remembered her as funny, friendly, and creative. She wanted to be a beautician one day. She often carried herself with the confidence of someone much older. But behind her laughter was a childhood shaped by instability. Relisha lived at the shelter with her mother, Shamika Young, and her younger brothers. The building was crowded and chaotic. Families shared space with strangers. There were reports of mold, vermin, and unsafe conditions. Security was loose. The shelter was supposed to be a place of refuge. Instead, it was a place where danger walked freely through the halls. One of those dangers was Kahlil Tatum, a janitor at the shelter. He wasn't just sweeping floors or fixing pipes. He was a familiar presence to the residents. Staff and family saw him giving children candy, toys, and even money. He positioned himself as helpful and generous, someone you could trust, but that trust came with a cost. By early 2014, Relisha's life started to take a darker turn. She began missing school. At first it was a day here, a day there, then the absences piled up. Teachers grew concerned. Relisha was bright, but her attendance slipped. Over 30 absences were recorded in just a short span. When school officials pressed her family for answers, they were told she was under the care of a doctor. The name on the note? Dr. Tatum. But there was no Dr. Tatum. It was a lie, a cover that showed what was really happening. Investigators later discovered that Kahlil Tatum had been taking Relisha out of the shelter. He took her to hotels around D.C., including the Holiday Inn Express. Surveillance footage captured them walking down a hallway together. In one of the last known images of Relisha, she holds a plastic bag, following Tatum into a hotel room. She looks calm, unaware of the storm about to consume her life. On March 19, 2014, authorities finally tried to make contact. A social worker arrived at the shelter, demanding to see Relisha. She wasn't there. Alarm bells rang. The school system flagged her as missing, and suddenly a case that had lingered quietly in the shadows exploded into the open. But the timeline was already slipping. Relisha had not been seen in weeks. As investigators scrambled, the focus turned to Kahlil Tatum. He was the last adult known to have her, but by then, Tatum himself was unraveling. On March 20th, police found his wife, Andrea Tatum, dead in a Maryland hotel room. She had been shot. All signs pointed to Kahlil. He was on the run, and Relisha was still missing. The city launched a massive search. Flyers, press conferences, and news alerts. The FBI joined the case. Crews scoured Kenilworth Park, a sprawling wooded area near Anacostia River. It was close to where Tatum had been seen last. For days, teams dug, searched with dogs, waded through waterlogged fields. On March 31st, Kahlil Tatum was found in a shed in Kenilworth Park, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Beside him was the weapon. He had taken his own life, but Relisha wasn't there. No trace, no body, no belongings. The one man who could have given answers was gone, leaving only silence. For Relisha's family, the nightmare had only begun. They were left with questions and no way to get closure. Did Tatum hide her body before his final act? Did he hand her off to someone else? Was she trafficked? Or is she still alive, hidden somewhere far from D.C.? Investigators admitted the case was deeply compromised by delays. By the time Relisha was officially listed as missing, nearly 3 weeks had passed since her last confirmed sighting. That gap, 18 critical days, may have sealed her fate. The failures didn't end there. D.C. public schools accepted the forged doctor's note, never verifying whether Relisha had actually seen a physician. Child Protective Services had been involved with her family multiple times before. Yet, they never removed her despite documented neglect. Shelter management allowed a man with a long criminal record access to families and children. No one stopped him. Kahlil Tatum's past was disturbing. He had prior arrests for burglary, theft, and violent offenses. Records show he had a history of predatory behavior, yet he was still employed in a building full of vulnerable families. That fact outraged the city. How could someone like him pass unnoticed? How could he become so close to an 8-year-old girl with no one stepping in? The community response was immediate and emotional. Vigils were held across the city. People marched with signs that read, "Bring Relisha home." Churches prayed and families lit candles. DC residents demanded accountability, but despite the protests and the media coverage, Relisha remained missing. Her mother, Shamika, has faced harsh criticism. Many believe she failed to protect Relisha, leaving her in the care of a man who should never have been trusted. Others argue the blame lies not only with her, but with the system that allowed such failures to stack up unchecked. As the years passed, the FBI continued to release age progression photos, following what Relisha might look like today as a teenager. Billboards flashed her face, news outlets ran updates on anniversaries, but the trail has gone cold. Some investigators believe Relisha's remains are somewhere in or near Kenilworth Park, undiscovered despite multiple searches. Others think she may have been trafficked, sold, or handed off before Tatum's death. Without evidence, both theories remain possible. Nearly a decade later, the case is still unsolved. Relisha would be a young woman now, perhaps preparing for adulthood. Instead, her story remains frozen in 2014, a mystery unsolved. Her disappearance forced DC to confront its failures. After her case, DC General Shelter came under intense scrutiny. Families described it as unsafe, filthy, and unfit for children. In 2018, the shelter was finally closed. Officials promised smaller, better-managed shelters would replace it, but for many, the change came too late. Relisha had already become a symbol of what happens when poverty, bureaucracy, and neglect collide. Relisha's story is about more than one child. It's about the lives of countless children who fall through the cracks. It's about the dangers of unchecked authority in vulnerable communities. And it's about how quickly a child can disappear when adults fail to act. The city of Washington, D.C. still remembers her name. Her face appears at community events, on posters, and murals. Activists invoke her memory when demanding reforms. But for her family, memory is not enough. They want truth. They want answers. Somewhere, someone knows what happened to Relisha Rudd. Someone knows whether she was hidden, handed off, or buried in a place searchers never reached. And until that truth comes out, her story will remain one of the darkest mysteries in DC history. This is Midnight Verdict. Straight facts, no fluff, no fillers. Subscribe to hear the stories that matter, the ones that reveal how fragile the system can be, and how easily lives are forgotten when the world looks away.